Imagine this. You spend decades building up your most trusted ally, pouring everything into this project, only for it to turn around and become your biggest nightmare. Sounds crazy, right? Well, that's exactly the unbelievable reality facing Pakistan today. In this explainer, we're going to break down the wild story of how a nation found itself at war with its very own creation.
Back in February 2026, Pakistan's defense minister said something that just shocked everyone. Our patience has run out. This is an open war. Now, if you follow this part of the world, your first thought is probably, okay, he's talking about India. That's the historic rivalry. But nope, he wasn't talking about India at all. He was talking about Afghanistan.
And the target of this open war? The Taliban. Yeah, the same Taliban that Pakistan's own intelligence agencies spent decades training, funding, and protecting. It's just mind-boggling. So the huge question, the one we have to answer, is how on earth did this happen?
So, let's get into it. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at just how bizarre this whole conflict is. I mean, this isn't your typical border dispute. It's way more personal. It's almost like a family feud, a total, catastrophic breakdown between the creator and its creation. So, in early 2026, Pakistan goes all in. We're talking full-scale military operations inside Afghanistan, airstrikes hitting major cities like Kabul and Kandahar. This wasn't a warning shot. This was a clear signal that any chance for diplomacy was completely off the table. It had failed. And who was their declared enemy? Again, the Afghan Taliban. Just think about that. The very group that Pakistan considered its crown jewel of foreign policy. The puppet that was supposed to secure its western border for good. Now, that same asset is enemy number one. Okay, so to figure out how this relationship just imploded so spectacularly, we have to rewind. We need to go back to the beginning and ask, why did Pakistan create the Taliban in the first place? And it really all boils down to one big strategic idea. That idea has a name: strategic depth. Sounds kind of complex, but it's pretty simple. For Pakistan, it was all about controlling Afghanistan. They wanted to turn it into a friendly buffer zone, to get an edge over their main rival, India. Having a friendly government in Kabul wasn't just a nice-to-have, it was the absolute cornerstone of their security strategy. And man, you can see this plan play out over decades. It all starts in the 90s. Pakistan's spy agency, the ISI, cooks up this whole thing. By 94, they find their guy, a cleric named Mullah Omar. They give him weapons, money, training, the whole shebang. And guess what? It works. Just 2 years later, the Taliban takes Kabul. Then, even after 9/11, Pakistan plays this incredibly dangerous double game, publicly helping the US, but secretly giving the Taliban a safe place to hide and regroup. So, when the Taliban storm back to power in 2021, Pakistan is ecstatic. Their then prime minister even called it breaking the chains of slavery. They thought, we did it. Our puppet is finally back in charge. But, and this is a huge but, there was a fatal flaw in their grand plan. A massive miscalculation. See, the same extremist ideology they used as a tool to create the Afghan Taliban, well, it had spawned something else. A completely different monster. One that was far, far more dangerous for Pakistan itself. Okay, so this is where things get a little tricky, and it's super important to understand the difference between two groups. On one hand, you've got the Afghan Taliban. Their goal? Rule Afghanistan. Simple enough. On the other hand, you have the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, usually just called the TTP. Their goal? To overthrow the Pakistani government. Now here's the kicker. They're allies. They share the same ideology. And the TTP operates from safe havens, you guessed it, inside Afghanistan. So yeah, the TTP, also known as the Pakistani Taliban, is not a joke. They're a UN-designated terrorist organization, and their one and only mission is to tear down the Pakistani state and install their own brutal regime. For Pakistan, this isn't just a nuisance, it's a direct, existential threat. And the level of brutality we're talking about, it's just sickening. You just have to look at what they did in 2014. The TTP stormed a public school in Peshawar and went from classroom to classroom, murdering 132 children, kids between 8 and 18 years old. This wasn't a battle, it was a cold-blooded massacre, and it's a day that has scarred Pakistan forever. So fast forward to 2021. The Afghan Taliban are back in power, and Pakistan thinks its grand plan has finally paid off. They thought they'd won, but in reality, they had just opened the floodgates. Their victory in Afghanistan unleashed a whole new wave of terror from the TTP right on their own doorstep.
And the results were immediate, and they were deadly. Just look at the numbers. Terror-related deaths in Pakistan went through the roof. They practically doubled in 2025 compared to the year before. The TTP felt emboldened, like their big brothers had just won the Super Bowl, and they went on a rampage inside Pakistan.
So this brings us to the breaking point. Pakistan goes to the Afghan Taliban with a very simple, non-negotiable demand. You have to crush the TTP, period. But for the Taliban, this was a massive problem. The TTP weren't just some random group they were hosting. These guys were their ideological brothers, fighting alongside them for years. And now, they're living freely in Afghanistan.
This put the Taliban in a strategic trap, a truly impossible position. Think about it. If they actually attack the TTP, what happens? Thousands of those TTP fighters, who are battle-hardened and angry, would probably just defect to the Taliban's biggest rival, ISIS-K. And that would create a massive internal security nightmare for the Taliban themselves. So what's the result? A deadly stalemate. The Taliban can't get rid of the TTP, and Pakistan can't tolerate them. Nobody can move.
And so, this brings us to the final, devastating conclusion. That grand strategy of strategic depth, the one Pakistan bet its future on for over 30 years, well, it didn't just fail, it backfired in the most spectacular, catastrophic way you could possibly imagine.
The irony here is just staggering. Let's just list it out. The asset they built from scratch, the Afghan Taliban, is now protecting their #1 enemy. The border they were so obsessed with securing is now an active war zone. And get this, the group they created to be a weapon against India is now signing trade deals with India. It's a total mess. Pakistan is trapped, trying to put out a massive fire that has started itself.
It all leads to a really tough question. Can a nation ever really put out a fire that it spent decades lighting and feeding? This whole situation is more than just a war. It's a brutal, real-world lesson about unintended consequences. It's the ultimate proof of what happens when you play with fire.